Well, Happy New Year, everybody. As we enter into 2025, I've got a special one coming at you. I got Pete Rambo back on my channel to talk about a friend of mine who's in a bad situation in his marriage. I mean, he's in trouble. And so I thought I'd bring Pete on to give the patriarchal view of what should be happening in his home and how he can get things turned around. Hey, if you're liking this content, like, subscribe, and give me a comment below. I think there's a lot of things to comment on with this story and then the advice that Pete's going to give for the patriarchal view. Anyway, let's get to it. What I wanted to talk to you about is I've got a good friend who is in trouble. His family situation, it's bad. Let me describe it to you, and then I wanted to get your thoughts on coming from the patriarchal position, because I know you've written a book on patriarchy, and then I mean not necessarily going into polygyny, but just from a patriarchal.
Oh, yeah. No.
What your opinion is on how he should go forward, because situation's not good for him. So my friend, I'll call him Steve. Steve, he was married to a woman for 23 years. And she ended up having an affair on him with another deacon in their church, and then running off with this man who she thought they were going to get married. And then, oh my goodness, come to find out, a man that has an affair with you made promises that he didn't keep, and they didn't actually get married once she she divorced her husband, my buddy Steve. So anyway, they had 5 kids together. They have four of their own, and then they adopted one. And so when she divorced him, he had to pay her quite a bit of money for, I think 2 of them were still of child support age, and then he had to pay her alimony too. And he got lucky though, because in my state of Illinois, after 20 years you pay lifetime alimony or lifetime maintenance or whatever they want to call it. But because she thought she was going to get remarried to this guy, they worked out a deal where he'd have to pay her for 7 years. And so he got off lucky with that. They didn't have to pay her lifetime, because once you get married again, then that goes away. So I guess that's how the rules work. So he's pretty in tune. This will come into the story later, but he's pretty in tune with all the laws, because he had to learn the hard way over getting run through the cleaners on how all this works. So he had a couple years, like his church said, you have every right to get remarried biblically because your wife cheated on you and she was unrepentant of it. She would not come back to you, because he was willing to forgive her and take her back. She wouldn't do that. So they said you have every right to
it's a classic case of the biblical definition of adultery, because I think a lot of times, cheated on, I don't even like using that term, because there's culturally we misunderstand marriage and misunderstand what a man can do and what a woman can do, and that the laws in Scripture are very different for each. It's not identical. And so I think it's important to begin by drawing the distinction that there's no such thing as cheating. We can call it fornication. In her case, because she was married, a married woman having relations with a man who is not her husband is the biblical definition of adultery, according to Leviticus 20, verse 10.
Okay.
Therefore, yes, he did have every right to divorce her, and that's the kindest thing that he could do according to the Torah.
Okay.
I guess the kindest thing would be to keep her, but that's not even that then dips into Deuteronomy 24, 1-4, and mixing seed, where once she's had relations with another man, you don't want to be mixing seed. So the best thing to do is to, at the very least, send her away.
Okay.
It gives her the ability to remarry.
Deuteronomy 24, verse what says that?
1-4.
1-4, really? Okay.
Yeah, so that's the passage where it says, if a man finds an uncleanness in his woman, he can write her a bill of divorce and send her away. And then if she marries another man and she finds no favor in his eyes or whatever, he can write her a bill of divorce and send her away, but she cannot return to the first man. Right? That's the only one that's barred from her. She can go to any other man, but she can't go back to that first man because it's mixing seed.
Really?
Right? And
wow.
that's considered an abomination.
Okay, yeah, we don't talk about that much in church. On the
Right. So,
okay,
but then also using the whole cheating thing, we hear that phrase, and I know we're off track a little bit, but we're kind of using, drawing some context or defining some terms.
yeah,
Cheating. We'll hear, well, a man, a married man goes and cheats on his wife. Well, if he's with a single woman, that's not cheating. If
mm,
he doesn't take care of her, it's fornication. If he does take her on as a second bride, it's not adultery. It's not fornication. It's nothing. It's just taking another woman, right?
mm,
The church doesn't want to hear that because they don't like what scripture actually says about marriage in that regard.
mm.
But that wouldn't be cheating. The church would define that as cheating, and they've destroyed many men and many families over a man having a relationship with a woman that's not his wife. But if she's available, he can have her. He can legitimately take her according to scripture. Again, that
Mm.
heads off into other topic areas. So then he's divorced, and now
So
we're
he's
further down the
divorced
road.
and he's paying he's funding his wife's affair, which we're all aware of how lousy that is and the divorce laws and all that. So finds a new woman,
Mhm.
uh, nice woman, and she has two kids from two previous marriages, separate marriages.
Okay.
Um, and well, they get married
Mhm.
without a prenup. Now this is going to come into play too. No prenup, just straight up married. And now there's problems though. So they've been married for almost 4 years,
Mhm.
and lot of problems. Not much peace in the home. So he has his adopted daughter, 50-50 custody. She is 13. His new wife's daughter is 13. So there is this competition between the daughters, and his new wife has, when he describes it to me, my buddy Steve's like, listen, my wife does like literally nothing to build a relationship with my daughter. She is only interested in taking care of her daughter. Any conflict with 13-year-old, 13-year-old girls act, they have, that's a tough time in a girl's life and a boy's life.
Sure.
Any misbehavior on his daughter's part is just the end of the world to his wife, and whenever her daughter acts out, oh, it's just normal and this is just 13, right? So there's just this tension constantly in the home with these two daughters. His new wife doesn't provide him much value in giving him peace. She doesn't cook. She doesn't clean. Like he cooks most nights for her kids and his kids, right? He works full time too. He's
Does
got
she
a great
work?
job. Yeah,
Does she work?
she has he helped her start her own business doing like nails and that type of, what do you call it, cosmetology or what, like
Mhm.
that type of field, right?
Sure.
So start her own business, and he basically funds that business. It doesn't really make any money. It just, like, without him keeping it afloat, it would just, it would dissolve. So it's not really providing him any value with bringing in funds, because her business would dissolve if he didn't keep it afloat. Um, but the thing that really kind of made things spiral downward is they had a confrontation where his daughter, well, it was a jealousy thing. So he bought a shirt for his daughter that he didn't buy for his stepdaughter, and his wife just went ballistic on him and ended up like slapping him a few times while she was yelling at him. And he ended up, I think, because of probably his previous marriage and the things that he learned about the laws and all those kinds of things, he ended up just calling the police and wanting them to come and calm her down. Like he wasn't going to throw her in jail or something, but he just wanted them to come and calm her down because he knew he couldn't, like, he wasn't going to do anything physically toward her in any way, shape, or form. So
He
at
should have
that.
put her
So
in jail so that he had the legal paperwork in hand demonstrating that she was the abuser. So he's got some leverage. But go ahead.
yeah. So so when he called the police, she ended up fleeing to her parents' home, who's they don't live too far away from where he does. So her and her daughter went to her parents' home. Police come. He said, "Well, she's down there," so the police went down there. So then the police comes back with her and her daughter to get her things from the home so that she's going to go stay with her parents for a while. And uh, the policeman said, "Well, she's said that you did some things to her, and so now it's a he said she said. So we're not taking her to jail. We're not doing any of that stuff." And her daughter then actually backed up her mom as well, which I
Of
mean that's
course.
par for the course. Her daughter lied as well and said, "Oh yeah, he did X, Y, Z, whatever." So this was a few months ago. Okay. So, now he's in a situation where like he says, when his daughter is with him, she just stays in her room. She doesn't come out to, like, the family room, dining room, whatever, because his wife is always just hostile towards her and she doesn't feel comfortable even being around her really. So it's either he's got to be with her in her room to spend time with her, or they have to go somewhere, go to get a coffee or whatever, go get ice cream so that he can spend time with her. And he's just like, at this point, my wife is not providing me like literally any value at all. And she recently went away for a couple days, and he was like, it was just incredibly nice to just have
Peace.
like peace when I come into my home and not just be like walking on eggshells, wondering when she's going to blow up at me. And now he's got a threat of he could go to jail, like literally. So he said that's most of the story. And he said also the time clock is ticking on him for what he needs to do as far as like legally, if he needs to separate or whatever, because he said after 4 years, he'll have to start, according to Illinois law, he'll have to start paying her if there would to be a divorce.
Hmm.
Because I guess if you've been married less than 4, there's no payments or whatever. If it's more than 4, then every year after that, it gets more and more and more and more that he'll have to pay to break the marriage contract. So that's in the back of his
And
head
no,
now too.
and no doubt the woman on her third marriage knows these things, and she's doing everything she can to milk the clock until she gets inside the window of winning the lottery again. So that no, that's I'm completely cynical when it comes to divorce law and what we've done in this country to empower feral females.
Oh, it's horrible.
Not a
Okay.
fan at all.
Yeah.
So,
So
so to
when
start
I
with, it sounds to me like this man, and I, he's not. I know not who it is or whatever. I'm just going to speak honestly. It sounds to me like he's not the head of his house and hasn't been since the beginning.
mm,
And that's a problem. That's a problem that before he gets married again, he needs to address that because he's clearly not the head of his house.
mm,
After 4 years, he should have been able to rein something in or start with an agreement. Not an agreement, you don't need an agreement. Be the head of the house, and
mm,
everybody in the house abides by your rules as the head of the house.
mm.
So that's he has allowed the situation to continue by not beginning to apply gentle pressure and rein it in, and now it's out of his control and he's up against the clock.
You're beyond the gentle pressure point, you're saying now, like that's not going to work.
Gentle pressure. She's just gonna play the clock, and then she's gonna call the cops again and say that he did it again or whatever, a lie again. And it's that's. Here's my challenge. All right.
Oh, Pete. So here's the
Go
thing
ahead.
on that. So here's the one sweetheart with that. So he didn't realize that his porch cam was on when this whole thing happened. And so he has the video and sound of the porch cam. You can see through the window the transaction. And so even when she said false things to the police, he said, "Well, I have this on video of what happened with sound." So if
And
this would
does he
come
have that
up.
locked in a safe that she doesn't have access to? Because I'm telling you, no. Listen. I'm completely cynical, completely cynical, and
Yeah.
um, too many men allow themselves into this place. He's on his second marriage. He should have had the good sense after the first one. Okay. She's
Mm,
on her third marriage. You started off with the phrase "a good woman," and I'm sorry, three marriages and good woman don't belong in the same sentence.
mm,
It doesn't work. It
mm,
does not work. Okay.
okay.
I can see a situation where a woman needs to be potentially, or some situations where something might cause the first one. But when you've got two divorces that she explains away and she's on her third, and then she's a feral woman that doesn't bring any value to the house, no, she's been the problem from day one. But he
Mm,
has allowed it to continue, and and so part of this is on him, no question.
okay.
Yeah, I think in your initial question, essentially, is or that you were asking me is, does he have grounds for divorce?
Well,
And
yeah.
this is
So
one of the big
he,
challenges. Go ahead.
so yeah. So in when he was talking to me, he's like, well, if I would divorce her, I just don't think biblically, because he's a good Christian man. He's like, I don't think biblically I have the right then to remarry because I didn't divorce for scriptural reasons. So he's telling me that like I don't want to be single for the rest of my life is what,
Right.
and so I think that's
Is
the
I
reality he's thinking about. Like,
Yeah.
well,
So according to Deuteronomy 24, a man is justified in divorce if he has found an unclean thing in her. Most consider this of a sexual nature, which is why we say that fornication or adultery are legitimate grounds. Church
okay,
typically recognizes those as legitimate grounds. No fault divorce is a big problem for both parties, but it's a much bigger problem for women being able to file for no fault than for men.
okay,
Men generally tend to be willing to tolerate more and put up with more and so on and so forth. And so no fault isn't often what men will file unless there's something else going on in the background and they're just too ashamed to pull that out, whether they're being abused or other things.
okay,
My inclination, from a masculine patriarchal perspective, the man has to have the authority to enforce rules in his home, and he must have the spine, the chutzpah, to be the head, to be the leader, to set the tone, to so on and so forth in the house. The
mm-hmm,
fact that he hasn't done that up to this point, by everything that I hear from you,
mm,
a significant chunk of the fault lies on his shoulders.
okay,
He's at fault by not saying, no, these are the expectations. If you live in my house,
yeah,
right? If you live in my house, my expectation is that you're going to carry, at least this percentage of the workload, or you're going to be responsible for these areas.
mm,
You're going to make good food, or whatever.
yeah,
um, you're going to behave in this manner. And,
mm,
as the head of the house, that behavior that you're exhibiting right now is not acceptable. Uh, when you're blending families, I think there needs to be a strong understanding before you ever start, or before
mm,
you ever enter into marriage, that for example, with children, that they're going to be treated with equity, and
yeah,
the man is the one that's going to be the one that determines what that is.
mm,
Because women, in their emotion, and particularly their tie to their own child, are automatically going to lean in that direction to the detriment of the man's children. Almost
oh
always
yeah,
happens.
because I've always heard that, but this sounds like it's just to the nth degree. Like she doesn't hide it. It's just like,
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
maybe that's typical. I
So
don't know, but
So there has to be an agreement up front. There has to be an understanding before they ever even enter into the relationship, that he's the one that's going to be doing this. And so,
mm,
what we have here is we have error compounding error, which leads us to a place that now his back is against the wall, the clock is ticking, and he's not sure what to do. And the question is, can he make a sudden hard move, divorce, without
mm,
having done the proper corrective measures along the way? And that's something he's got to work out before the Most High.
Mm.
Having said that, I will say this. As the head of the house, if she disrespects him to the degree that she slaps him
Yeah.
multiple times, to me that is of extreme concern for having any authority or headship in the home. And if she calls herself a Christian, and again, it's not about being Christian. I'll remove that term and just say someone who believes Scripture or who
Mm.
accepts Scripture as being foundational. It's inexcusable. It's
Yeah.
beyond inexcusable.
Yeah.
Is it grounds for divorce? It I wrestle with that without having built a case. But let's
Mm.
look at the Most High. Who is the most famous divorcee of all time? The Most High. He divorced the house of Israel because she was rebellious, and she figuratively slapped him in the face multiple times, but she figuratively also committed adultery by fornicating with other gods, other idols, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But Scripture tells us rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. That's a
Mm.
capital offense.
Okay.
It's a capital offense. So, I mean, if witchcraft were going on and you were living in the land, divorce was a non-issue. She was going away anyway. You weren't going to have to worry about even dealing with the ex at that point. There's no alimony to pay. He's put himself in a really bad position by not being a man
Mm.
and by not taking authority from the outset. He
Mm.
made some bad decisions at the outset and then allowed things to begin compounding. And the woman, if she, it sounds like she's basically your feral female, the
Yeah.
woman has just recognized that every time he doesn't stand up to her, she respects him less. And so she pushes farther into his face.
Mm. Yeah.
And and maybe, hypothetically, most women just want a man that's going to stand up to them and tell them no.
Mm.
And had he been doing that all along, she might be doing what she's supposed to be doing at this point and not acting like the witch that she's being. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's not a good, easy answer for this. It's a compilation of a lot of different things, and I would certainly say that the starting point is that he wasn't the man at the beginning. He was not, he may have been leading during the dating, but as soon as she was in the house, he relinquished different pieces of control until she's running the show.
Mm. Yeah.
And anytime a woman is running the show and taking authority from a man, whether she understands it consciously or not, subconsciously she disrespects that man more and more and more and dislikes him more and more and more because he won't stand up to her. And she knows that he's the authority.
Okay.
Even hardwired, she knows he's the bigger one, he's the stronger one, he's the one that is supposed to stand out front and provide and protect, but I can push him over. And so this is a problem in the homes of 95% of men throughout Christendom,
Mm.
not just in the culture around us. And in fact, a lot of times bad boy homes run better than Christian homes simply because Christian homes really good at putting some nice pretty paint on it when they go to church, dress up and go to church, or when
Mm.
they're out in public. But in behind closed doors, it's a wreck, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the larger lesson for all men who watch your material or who follow you for your masculine and patriarchal thought process is they need to be building or intentionally developing the authority in their house,
Yeah.
being the head of the house. And this
Okay.
is something last night in our mentoring call on my patron, among the men that I have in my patron, one man said, I'm living in a sexless marriage right now and I don't know what to do about it.
Mm.
And
Okay.
another man said, same thing here. I'm sleeping on the couch. And I said, time out, time out. Master bedroom,
Oh.
master bedroom. That is your bedroom. It is not her bedroom. That is
Mm.
your house. It's not her house. Never, ever, ever. And I'm going to get off on a rant here, but this is important for every man to hear. Never let her kick you out of the bed.
Mm.
If she
Yeah.
doesn't want to sleep with you, let her go sleep on the couch. That's your bed. That's your bedroom. That's your house. It's the master bedroom. It's not the mistress of the house or the mistress or, the ma'am or whatever. It's,
Yeah.
you know, And this is really where it starts. And then we had a conversation. He's like, well, how do I correct the situation? And so we had a conversation about this, and we talked about the progressive measure, the progressive process that a man has to begin to take to win back territory, to
Okay.
place himself in authority. Because a lot of men try to make that knee jerk and sudden, and it's a head snap, and everybody gets their feelings bent out of shape, or the woman throws in the towel and walks away. To
Yeah.
correct it needs to be a progressive thing where you start getting a spine, reach
Hmm.
down and grab yourself by the gonads or whatever, and begin to take authority in the situation. And you say, no, this is my house and this is how it's going to work. Okay,
Mm.
so hypothetically, let's say she stays in bed with you, but it's still sexless. I said, okay, that's fine. That's a good place to start. Now, in the middle of the night, you throw your arm over, you pull
Mm.
her in, and just don't make it sexual. It's not sexual, but demonstrate possession, demonstrate ownership. All the while, you have to be reminding the woman, I love you, I want you, but it's going to be this way in my house.
Okay.
Okay. Most men are afraid of making those hard statements. Most women react against those hard statements, but they want to hear those hard statements because they want to be confronted when they're bad. And many women will act out expressly because they want the man to step up and say no. And so you have to be willing, you really, as a man, you've got to be willing to stand up and say, no,
Mm.
my house, my rules.
Yeah.
I lead, you follow. I love you. I want you. Now, I don't know if I said this before when you and I were talking in my Patreon, I've got a video, one of the early videos I did that says, never tell a woman you need her. If we understand marriage according to scripture, and if we understand polygyny according to scripture, a man can always go get another. So from that perspective, you don't need this particular one or that particular one because you can always fill whatever gap there is in your team or in your family or in your house with somebody who can do that well.
Mm.
Okay. So I love and I have two ladies, right? I'm a trophy husband, right there. See, um, just go ahead and put it up there, right? Anybody that comes to my channel, you know this, so it's not a big deal.
Hmm.
Um, and those who saw me on your channel before know this.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the point. They need to know that they're wanted. They need to know that they have security, and they need to know that you will lead and you won't put up with stupid crap. And so the process of walking that back, though, takes some time. And so you have to begin to take dominion in small areas. It's like, going back to sleeping in bed, throwing an arm over demonstrates, and, let them brush it off. No, I'll pull her in. And I went through this with my first wife, when she was so upset at me for coming out and saying, no, this is what scripture says. And I'd like to grow the family, right?
Okay.
And so we went through a period of time. It was fairly small, but we went through a period of time where she's like, okay, well, I will still demonstrate that you belong to me. I love you and I want you right there. I'll throw a leg over or whatever. These kind
Mm.
of things. But there are other things. Hugs in the kitchen, so on and so forth. Affirming everything that they do that's positive, that's right, that's done the way that you want it done. Affirming. I really like the way you do that.
Oh, okay.
Complimenting that. And not missing those opportunities to affirm that because most women crave that attention and that affirmation.
Oh.
But also where there are things that are wrong. I can be a gentle shepherd, but I'm going to say that's not good. I don't like that. That's not going to work in this house. And this is why.
Okay.
It's not scriptural, or it's not according to the way, my plans and goals for this family, or it's not whatever else.
Mm.
And he needs to have a quote, come to Jesus conversation. If he's going to try to make this fly, come to Jesus conversation with her to say, look, this is the way it's going to work. And
Yeah.
these are some foundational principles. According to Ephesians chapter 5, 22 and following, I'm the head of the house. According to 1 Corinthians 11, verses 3 and follow, I'm the head of the house. According to, and you have to lay some of this stuff out and then begin building these pieces. In most cases for men, the expectation is, well, you just want to be in charge. No, you have to make your authority the word, right? Your authority can't be yourself, because if you're saying this is the way I want it in my house, and then she says, well, okay, says who? And you say, well, me, that's not good enough. You've got to be able to say the word says that the man is the head of the house. And then that gives me the authority to set the rules in these areas or set the boundaries or so on and so forth. And so it's important that any man who is establishing authority in his home, that he does so with the foundational rock, the principle of Scripture, so that he can say, no, 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 no. Over here in Genesis, this is where I get my authority from.
Yeah, no, that's great, Pete. Now, is this in your book as well? The kind of things that you're laying out here, or
Yes, yeah. Well, a lot of these things are there, and then the book itself, Authority, Headship, and Family Structure, according to Moses, walks through it pulls all of Scripture, but it's really rooted in the first 5 books, and the fact that the authority begins with man, and that all of culture and all of, for me, I focus it on the restoration of Kol Israel, or all Israel, because ultimately the new covenant is with the house of Israel and the house of Judah, and it says all Israel, so on and so forth. And I look at that as well from Ezekiel chapter 37, and looking at the restoration of all Israel, we see 37:15 through 28.
Okay.
So it's there with some practical stuff, and then a lot more practical stuff discussed in our Patreon, as a place that we can openly discuss a lot of things that may not be totally kosher for the public YouTube.
Yeah, actually the video I was telling you about, that the sound got messed up. We were talking about the discipline of the wife, and what some of the church fathers have said about that, and what the societal laws were in regard to that.
Culturally, even in Western civilization, until about 150 years ago, the woman belonged to, was the property of, could not do business without the approval of, or consent of, or permission of her husband.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that perspective, we understand, I'm not one who necessarily uses any kind of spanking or something of that sort. I know men who have used domestic discipline and have done so well, and within very careful boundaries and everything, and it has worked well for them. For me, other things though, there are lots of ways for discipline. What you have to do is simply figure out what makes your woman tick.
Okay.
And then how to operate with that. For one of my ladies, my first wife, Kelly, we've been together 33 years. She, if there's something, she does not like anything where I'm, very displeased. And I don't have to get angry, but there's a chair in our bedroom where I can go sit down in that chair, and she knows that if I'm sitting in that chair, she needs to come and she'll kneel, and we're going to have a conversation that's going to be head to, or master bond servant type relationship, right? But that's the way it is between the Messiah and us. There are times when we have to come before him and say, I'm sorry, I messed this up, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the way and that works very effectively with her. And I don't have to use it more than, it's once every 2 months. Very rarely do I have to.
Okay.
Most of the time, just a gentle correction, and we're good.
So, no, that's good stuff, Pete. So I think you were kind of getting into it, but what would be the steps? Like, let's say this was your son who was in this situation. What would
I would have taken, if this were my son, I would have taken him behind the woodshed 3.5 years ago and said, dude, you are messing it up, and I'm fixing to have a laying on of hands and prayer meeting with you, because you'd better get this straightened up, or it's going to be out of control. And you might not. I mean, once we get to this place here, he's got to decide one of two things. Either he's got to go ahead and cut bait, or he's going to have to take some very firm steps, very hard steps, and he's going to have to be very intentional, and he's going to have to suffer the hellfires that it takes to get her in line because
Mm.
she's going to make his life ever loving uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
that's the way women work. That's, most of them, that's what they're going to express their displeasure, and they're going to use emotional manipulation and control and all these different things because they don't have the physical ability.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other thing that I would do if he takes that route, if he chooses to begin to bring things in line, he had better record every conversation. He had better be
Mhm.
keeping cameras going. He needs these things for his defense, because if she balks at any
Mhm.
point, if she balks and runs to the police or decides she's gonna cry, and lie to the courts and have her 13-year-old sworn in on it, I'll
Yeah.
give you 10% of whatever he gives, I don't know, whatever, however it works. Right?
Whoa.
Bribe the daughter to
Whoa.
lie with you or whatever. These kind of things happen though. This is the reality of what we're dealing with out there. It's
Yeah.
crazy town.
Yeah.
Um, he needs to make sure he is backing himself up very well with documentation. Anytime she flies off the handle, he'd better be recording right
Okay.
away.
So, okay.
Um,
So that, no, that's
because
a good point. So if,
because if it winds up in court, he has to have he can't go back and say, well, she did this, that, and the other, because she's going to say, no, I didn't, and the court will side with her.
oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
he has to be protecting himself and saving all of this stuff and putting it away, locking it away. And then later on, when things run smoothly for a while, don't throw it away. Till you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that she's with you and completely bought into your program and you as head and leader, and she's going to follow. Until then, you better always keep your protection.
Well, that's what, so when he told her that he had a recording of it, blah, blah, blah. So,
But she got sweet, didn't she?
no, she told him, she said, if you love me, you will delete that.
That's all that is emotional manipulation. If I love you, I'll take you back into the bedroom and spank you because you are acting like a man. This
Really?
makes
And I
me
was like, you didn't delete it, did you? And he goes, no, no way am I deleting that. Whoa.
no. What if you love me? That is emotional manipulation. If and so he needs to go back and look and say, how many times has she manipulated me with little statements like that? And you've got to learn to recognize that and call that out. If you're going to be the head of your house, you've got to be able to call that out at the drop of a hat. She starts a little emotional song, and it's, that is manipulation, and I am not going to accept it. I refuse that.
Okay.
As soon as I recognize some kind of emotional manipulation or a little deal like this, I will call it out.
Mm,
That is not happening in my house.
yeah.
Because think about it this way, and I mean, this is, you've used the name Steve. I hope that's not his name. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's not. We're
I
just
hope not.
calling him Steve.
Here's the thing. He needs every man who's a believer who reads scripture. You need to understand that your marriage, your relationship with your woman should be a picture of the Messiah and the ecclesia.
Yeah.
And so if what's going on in your house is the ecclesia manipulating, bullying, twisting,
Mm,
controlling the Messiah,
yeah.
the picture's wrong.
Hmm.
If you
Yeah.
want the picture to be right, you need to get a really good look at, how does Yeshua handle the ecclesia? Even when the ecclesia is misbehaving, how does Yeshua handle it? It's
Mm,
not in anger. It is corrective. It could be withdrawing presents. It could be withdrawing benefits and blessings. It could be it could be tightening the parameters of operation for a period of time. You know, these are the things a man has to wrap his mind around. If you're going to have a successful marriage, and there's no such word in Scripture, and at least not in the Hebrew. A
mm,
man takes a woman; she belongs to him. It's his house, right?
yeah.
Marriage is a term that we use, but we bring so much baggage with it when we try to apply it to what this relationship between a man and a woman is.
Mm,
A good friend of mine calls it this thing we call marriage because there's so much baggage with that word. But
mm,
if your relationship with your woman is going to be a reflection of the Most High or a reflection of Yeshua, Jesus, and the ecclesia, church, you'd better understand how each party is supposed to operate and then make your system operate that way.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Wash her in the word. If she's not completely on board with the word, then you've got a problem in your house already,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem like there's a lot of women that show up for church, give lip service to, yes, I believe the scripture, but then when it really comes down to it in regard to the home, the marriage relationship, it's like, well, no, I mean, we follow the culture. We don't like actually follow.
Right. So you're not really following scripture. You're doing your own thing and throwing a little Jesus paint on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's very, very common. Like,
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And for that reason, there will be a whole lot of men, a whole lot of men and women who say, "Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons?" He's going to say, "Depart from me. I never knew you."
so you're saying the first step, it's either there's the go plan, or if you're going with the stay plan, you you don't trust her to give you the benefit of the doubt. You're going to have to put cameras in and that kind of stuff and make sure that
Well,
as
either that or just with his phone, he's got a recording option, and all he's got to do is hit record anytime that there's conversations going down. And he needs to record good ones and bad ones. And when the conversation starts to escalate, that record should be running so
mm,
that and he needs to also make sure he's always acting righteously. Always.
yeah. Okay. The only thing about the stay plan is that again, he's like, boy, it could go well for a few more years and then just blow up again. But I'm on the hook for more
Yeah.
assets than at that point.
If he does the stay plan, he needs to be fully committed and go all in, and it's going to be all the way to the place of her walking in submission to him.
Okay.
He can't go half beta, half alpha. He's going to have to go full alpha. And
Okay.
that doesn't mean that, and again, full alpha doesn't mean being a bully. A lot of people think that our alpha is just, and that's not true. You can
Yeah.
be a fantastic, compassionate, loving leader, but you just don't take, I don't take any guff.
Mm. Okay.
It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen in my house.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. So would you say that up front then to say like we're going to have to make changes or else this marriage is going to dissolve?
Yeah. Yeah. I would basically say either it's over or we're going to do it God's way. And this is the direction we're going to go.
Okay.
Because we can't keep doing what we're doing. It's a disaster, and I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not walking in the image of the Messiah. I'm not doing the things in my home. And so I would take some of that on myself. I'd say, so there's some things that I have to change about me because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because a large part of what's going on there is his fault. He's allowed it to escalate. He's allowed it to happen. Because here we go. Most men in modern culture simp. They
Hmm.
they look for peace. They're going to be peacemakers. They're going to try to soften, try to, and this is where many men make the mistake in making the transition to being the head of the house is they want to do it carefully so that they don't ruffle any feathers and you're not going to sneak up on it.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay.
Own it. Take charge and be the man. Don't, you can move into different areas and take authority in different areas progressively without just owning everything. But you've got if I were sitting down, I'd say, look, things are going to change around the house. What
Mhm.
we're doing right now is not working. This is not biblical, and so we're gonna start this over.
Okay.
I'm the head of the house. According to scripture, I'm the head of the house. And I'm the head of everybody in the house. That includes her and you and my daughter and everybody else.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I'm the one that sets the tone and I'm the one that sets the authority and I'm the one that gives the chore list and I'm the one that so on and so forth. And these are the things that I expect from you.
Mm.
And these are the things I expect from her. and from her. And these are the chores. I'd make the girls wash dishes every night. It's their responsibility together to wash dishes. And if y'all can't do it together and do it peacefully and work it out, then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to tell you who's going to do what, right?
Okay.
Because we're going to
Yeah.
learn to get along and we're going to learn to work together. If they share a bathroom, they can take turns cleaning the bathroom. If they
Mm.
each have their own bathroom, they're going to clean their own bathroom.
Okay.
It's not his job. It's not mom's job. It can be mom's job. And maybe mom needs to go in and clean up behind him if but here's the deal. Who does the laundry? 13-year-olds, they should be doing their own laundry,
Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Mom should be doing dad's laundry.
Yeah. Yeah. He does
Right?
the laundry for the whole household. When he told me that, I was like,
Negative.
what?
Negative. No, here's the thing. Here's the thing. She runs the house and she likes doing her things her ways and doesn't care about anybody else.
That seems to be the situation. Yeah. When he
Well, this
describes it
is,
to
I
me.
mean, this is what I'm interpreting, understanding from. And so
Yeah.
she dumps everything that she doesn't want and she only does what she wants to do,
Which isn't much. Yeah.
apparently. So, yeah, no, no, I
Okay.
mean, so if he doesn't think that he can make this happen, and it's gonna be the supreme challenge because it's gonna make him step up and be a man
Mm.
and own the situation.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he won't have any chores. It does mean that there are some things that he can do or he can help pick up slack in places. But you know what? I don't have a lot of assigned deals here that I
Yeah.
would assign to myself. There's some things that I enjoy doing chore wise, but I've got the overall. And if I see that somebody needs help in this area or that area or somewhere else, I'll step in. I'm not the one that's doing, I've got two sons who live here. They primarily take care of the animals on the farm. I go out and check periodically. I went out and fed this morning. It's the first time in, I don't know, uh, 2 weeks or 3 weeks that I've been out to feed. I've been out to check on animals a bit, but they do the morning and evening feeding. They do their own laundry. Um, the one son's wife is here. They're living here while they save up some money and he's in school until they can get out and get their own place.
Huh.
She does their laundry. She has an assigned a couple nights in the kitchen. The other two ladies, they take turns cooking, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so if someone would want to dig into more of your viewpoint on patriarchy, that's going to be mostly in your book that you had referenced there.
Some of it's there in the book. Yep. Or,
Okay.
come you check out my YouTube channel. Okay.
Yeah.
But of course that also we spend a lot more time discussing marriage and kind of what that looks like. I'm getting ready to do a couple more. I just did some logical and not direct scriptural biblical, but other stuff that deal with marriage. And then in my Patreon, we have a mentoring call every week, and $10 a month level is gets to participate in that as well as access to the Telegram groups, access to other stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay. So one last question then, Pete.
sure.
So if he would say, okay, we're going to do things the biblical way, and she says, I'm not interested in that. And he says, okay, well, then we're going to have to dissolve this
Well,
marriage.
I have some video evidence here that you have been abusive, and I am taking it to or he doesn't even need to say that because if he threatens it, she'll try to beat him to the it's the first one that files. The point is, I'm not a fan of divorce.
Yeah.
I am not at all a fan of divorce. However, sometimes it's necessary.
Mm.
As sad as that is, sometimes it's necessary. The challenge is that he has allowed a situation to continue that has put him in a bad spot.
Mm.
And because he hasn't corrected it in the time frame that he should have corrected it, the big question now is whether or not it's wise to divorce because his grounds are a little thin. He didn't do the job that he needed to do in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with him.
Would he, so let's see, in your opinion, then, would he be able to get remarried um, if he would divorce?
If his grounds are strong enough, yes.
Okay.
The challenge is that again, has he really, did he try to do everything he could do to correct it? Because we look, for example, at Yahweh with
Mhm.
Israel. He was long suffering. He
Yeah.
sent prophet after prophet. He sent correction after correction. He tried to discipline them with the Ammonites and the Babylonians, or the Babylonians was later, but ultimately the Assyrians were the ultimate discipline
Mm.
that led to the divorce. But there were others, the Moabites, the Philistines, the others would have power against him, and he'd try to use that for discipline, famine, um, lots of other things, and they just didn't. They refused to respond. They turned back for a little while, and then they'd go be bad again. The
Yeah.
problem is that the subject that we're discussing here, it doesn't sound like he has actively tried to fix things. It sounds like he's been a pacifier and tried to be a peacemaker, and she's continued to walk all over him more and more and more and more. It's gotten
Yeah,
progressively
I think
worse.
that's probably the case. He's just trying to keep the
Yeah.
peace, trying to make her happy.
Keeping the peace is a man's enemy.
Mm.
Don't keep the peace. Men are not designed to be peacekeepers or peace.
Mm.
We can be a peacemaker at points, but if that becomes your modus operandi, hmm,
It's not going to work.
yeah, that can't be your modus operandi because you
Okay.
become a simp. That's a beta. Somebody else is going to be in charge every time.
Well, because he's even, I mean, he was telling me he was thinking about like, well, maybe if I just like get her an apartment for her and her daughter and just
Peacemake.
like we could live separate for a while and then maybe things will get better and come together at some point
No,
again.
no.
But because her being in his life
He's
just,
hoping he doesn't want to go through the discomfort of facing her down. He's hoping that somehow he's probably praying for her like crazy. Oh God, please change her heart. Well, you know
mm,
what? God put a man in her life who has authority over her who's not doing what he's supposed to be doing.
yeah,
He's
that
not
makes
going to like
sense.
me. That's the truth, man. Listen, men have to step up and take authority.
Okay. Yeah.
If you're not doing that, you're not being responsible too. Was Yeshua a peacemaker with the Pharisees?
No.
Did he acquiesce to their demands? Did he
No.
did he try? No. No.
Mm,
He was addressing the ecclesia,
yeah.
the house of Israel and the house of Judah, or I'm sorry, the house of Judah. The house of Israel was another part that he had to deal with, and did so differently, right? His
Yeah.
death, burial, and resurrection had to do with the house of Israel more than Judah,
Yeah.
because he had to sever the divorce decree so that he could recovenant with them. They could be raised in newness of life,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Romans chapter 7. But
Okay.
you can't be a pacifier. A man cannot be a pacifier or pacifist and not be willing to stand up and own the ground that belongs to him. He's not a man. You're not a man.
I think that's
Excellent.
mostly what I wanted to talk about and get your opinions on for. Okay, and actually the reason I wanted to do this because I know there's probably a bunch of guys that
Yes.
listen to my channel that are in maybe not the exact same situation, but they're
Yes.
in a very similar situation.
Very common. Yes.
And so that's why I thought, you know what? I should talk about this with Pete and just get his
Yeah.
opinions on things and get that out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell him to call me. I do coaching.
Okay.
I'd be glad to tell him, dude, pull your pants up, strap on your belt,
Well, now Pete,
man
the other
up.
thing is too, he because of his first divorce and all the craziness that happened, just ripped his family apart. He had a good conservative family. That happened. Now his kids are going off the rails and blah. So like he sees a counselor regularly because trying to deal with all that. It's just I don't know if these
Is it a
counselors.
male counselor? Is it a female counselor? Is it a man who understands how to be a man, or is it a man who helps him try to figure out how to pacify and keep the woman happy and sort of manipulate things and
I
that's
think
a
it's
big
that.
problem we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, too many, even in counseling, it's all about trying to manipulate the circumstances instead of just taking authority, taking charge. You
Yeah.
are the man. It's your house. Be the man.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because it sounds like a lot of like looking back in the past and figuring out your past trauma and her trauma, and she's a whatever psychobabble terms and blah 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 blah.
And there may be some need for some of that to work through. So I don't disagree with that. But the number one problem is he's not the man of the house.
Well, you heard it straight from Pete. You got to be the man of the house if you're going to be a patriarch. And it takes work, it takes time, dedication, and it takes a spine. Got to be the man of the house. And we know who the true man of the house of Israel is. His name is Christ, and Christ is winning. He will win in 2025 and for the rest of time because he said, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Until next time, this is the Postmillennial Man.